What's up YouTube and welcome to the Anabolic Outpost. In this edition I will be showing off my Anabolic Strawberry Cheesecake Overnight Oats recipe. This recipe is one of my go-to breakfast recipes, especially when I'm looking for something quick in the morning and don't want to be too fooled up and save my calories later in the day. This really helps me out, and also because it is extremely easy to prepare, and you could prepare a week worth of servings for this recipe in just 10 minutes. And also, don't get too caught up in the name because this recipe can easily be modified to really make it whatever flavor of overnight oats you want. You just have to get a little bit creative with it. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to make 5 servings of this recipe, but you could do the math yourself and make however many servings you want. And it also really doesn't make sense to have this complex of an intro for a recipe that is this simple. So let's get right into it. Now obviously it wouldn't be overnight oats without oats, and there are many different types of oats out there. I personally like the old-fashioned oats the best, but it really doesn't matter what kind of oats you want for this recipe, it's all personal preference. The second ingredient that we have for this recipe is the protein powder, and for this recipe I am using the PE Science Strawberry Cheesecake Protein Powder, and this is what really makes it the Strawberry Cheesecake Overnight Oats, other than the strawberry topping at the end just to enhance the strawberryness of the oats. This next ingredient that I have is fat-free milk. As always, you could substitute whatever milk you want, fat-free Greek yogurt, and finally a little bit of sugar-free syrup. Alright, so we're starting this recipe off like most of my recipes with the scale and the big mixing bowl. I actually used to try to fit each individual serving into its own container, but I've actually found out that it saves me a lot more time if I just mix it all in one big bowl, and then I can just weigh it out individually each morning that I want to eat it. So the base of this recipe, which I am pouring in right now, is going to be 200 grams of oats. Next, I'm going to add 550 grams of the milk. This is the ingredient that I was playing around with the most in my experimentation process, and I still really couldn't get the right answer. For me, I think that 550 grams or 110 grams per serving is really the best for the consistency, but you could play around with it yourself and find out what consistency you want best in your oats. If you're going to add more milk, it's obviously going to be a little bit looser, and if you add less, it is thicker. So just be sure to play around with it and find a texture that you like. I'm now shoveling in my Greek yogurt, and this recipe uses a lot of Greek yogurt. Depending on the container that you have, you're probably going to be looking at using the entire container, but it's all good because of all the protein and the zero fat that is in there. It makes for a great ingredient to really any recipe. And for this one, you're going to want to add 850 grams. Now I'm pouring in my sugar-free maple syrup, and this is a great addition to any overnight oats recipe, and I really do not see it talked about enough as it adds a different sort of sweetness and texture to your overnight oats, and you might not notice it at first, but once you go without it in this recipe, you will really notice the difference. In total, you're going to want to add 75 grams of the syrup. And the last ingredient where all of the flavor comes from to make this the Strawberry Cheesecake Overnight Oats is the Strawberry Cheesecake Protein Powder. For a 5-serving recipe, this calls for 100 grams of protein powder. Alright, and it is now time to bring it all together, and it is a lot easier to do this by just shaking it, but I like to give it a quick stir first just so that the protein powder dissolves correctly and there isn't powder stuck all over the top and the sides of your mixing bowl. Like I said, it doesn't have to be super thorough, just so that it's mixed a decent amount before you go in for the shake. It is now time for the shake. There really isn't any commentating required for this. Just shake it up, down, left, right, and side to side, and you should be good. And in case you are wondering, this is what the consistency kind of looks like before you put it into the fridge to set. It should be pretty loose, so don't get too concerned at this part. The oats are going to soak it all up, and this is not going to be the texture that you're left with once you're done. And now that it has sat overnight, this is the texture that we're now working with. It should be pretty similar to a Greek yogurt texture, actually. A pretty good thickness to it, but not super thick. Like I said before though, it really depends on how much milk you add. If you want it a little bit thinner than this, add some more milk. If you want it thicker, add some less milk. And this is the final product. I have scooped out my individual serving of overnight oats, and then I layered the top with some diced strawberry, really to enhance the strawberryness that is going down in this recipe. I would also like to take this time to mention that the name overnight oats is a little bit misleading in the sense that if you let this sit for only about 15-20 minutes, you are going to get the end texture, and that is plenty enough time for the oats to soak up all of the liquid. And now the best part of the entire video, the part that people click on the thumbnail just to skip to, it's time for the macro breakdown. For this recipe, it's going to have 40 grams of protein with 53 grams of carbs, 5 grams of fiber, 5 grams of fat, making a total of 340 calories. 40 grams of protein in a 340 calorie recipe is quite impressive, and that is thanks to the duo of Greek yogurt and protein powder. Be sure to look out for many recipes that have Greek yogurt and protein powder in them. Any of those recipes that have both of those in there are going to be insanely high in protein, as both of them are pretty much just pure protein. Unfortunately though, every great video has to come to an end, and we have reached that point in this video. If you did have any questions though regarding substitutions or any aspect of this recipe, be sure to comment them down below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I love interacting with all of my subscribers that have been following these recipe tutorials, and if you found this recipe delicious and enjoyable, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really means a lot to the growth of this channel. Some people really underestimate how much that means to me, and I appreciate it very much. So thank you, and thank you for watching this video.